My parents stole my college fund by faking a disability for me, paid for my sister's degree, now they owe me $150,000 and I'm not staying quiet. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. So, get this, I found out just last week that my parents had actually set up a college fund for me. But here's the kicker, they emptied it out to cover my sister's college costs. I'm 24 now, and my sister, Emily, is 20. I never went to college because my parents kept telling me they couldn't afford it. They were always like, if you want to go, you'll have to figure it out yourself. So, I didn't go. Instead, I jumped into working right after high school, starting at a gas station and later moving on to a retail job in a mall. I've been grinding full-time for about 6 years. Meanwhile, my sister started college 2 years ago at this swanky private university that costs, like, $45,000 a year. I just assumed she got scholarships or something. Honestly, I didn't even ask because I was trying hard not to be bitter about it. Back in high school, I had pretty good grades and was in the honor society. I was all set to study business or accounting, but my parents always said they couldn't chip in financially. They kept suggesting scholarships, but admitted they couldn't pitch in anything themselves. Even community college was an option, but I'd have to manage it all on my own. Then, last Sunday, I went over to my folks' place for one of those mandatory family dinners. My sister was there too. After dinner, my dad asked if I could grab some files from his office for him. He was doing some tax stuff for my uncle or something. While searching through the filing cabinet, I stumbled upon a folder with my name on it. I swear, I wasn't snooping, it was right there next to the tax stuff. I figured it might be school records or something. Nope. It was a bunch of bank statements from an account in my name that I'd never known about, opened when I was born. My grandparents and parents had been putting money into it for years until I turned 18. The last statement showed a balance of just over $13,000, and there was a note saying it was transferred to Emily's education fund 4 years ago. I took the folder back downstairs and asked my folks about it. My mom looked like a deer in headlights, and my dad got all defensive. He said I had no business snooping through their stuff. I pointed out that the account was literally in my name, so, yeah, it was kind of my business. That's when Mom started crying, and Dad made me sit down to explain. Yes, there had been a college fund for me, but since I chose not to go to college, they decided to use it for Emily. I reminded them that I didn't choose not to go. They kept saying they couldn't afford to help me, shutting down any college talk all through high school. I eventually gave up and got a job. Dad insisted I should be happy the money helped my sister, as if that's supposed to make it better. Emily sat there looking super uncomfortable, saying she didn't know the money was originally for me. She thought they'd saved it specifically for her. Mom was still crying, insisting they did what they thought was best. I just got up and left. Ignored their calls and texts since then. Emily texted an apology, saying she had no clue. My parents have called like 20 times, with Mom leaving voicemails about wanting to explain. Now I'm stuck, not sure what to do. That money could have changed everything for me. I could have gone to college, gotten a different job, maybe even started a real career. But here I am, 6 years into retail, while Emily's off at a fancy college with my money. I've been looking online to see if what they did is even legal. Since the account was in my name, but I was a minor, they were probably the custodians. Not sure about the legal side, but morally it feels so wrong. A friend suggested I talk to a lawyer, while another said to cut ties and move on. I'm not sure which way to go. Part of me wants to see if I have any legal claim to that money, even if it's just a portion so I could still go to college. I'm 24, so it's not too late. My apartment lease is up for renewal soon, and I've been thinking about moving anyway, maybe to a cheaper place further from the city. But now I'm wondering if I should consider moving even further away, maybe start fresh somewhere else. Honestly, I feel like just cutting ties with my family altogether, but it seems like that would be letting them get away with everything too easily. So, I reached out to my grandparents, who are my mom's parents. They were the ones who kicked off the college fund when I was born. When I told them the money was given to my sister instead of me, they were completely clueless. They thought I just decided not to use it. My grandpa was really shocked and said he'd call my parents to straighten things out, but I haven't heard anything since then. Update, thanks to you guys, I realized I should talk to a lawyer, so I started calling around to see if any offer free consultations. I just need to know if there's any legal action I can take, even if I don't end up going that route. I want to understand my options before deciding how to handle things with my family. First update, it's been 3 weeks since I found out about the whole college fund mess. I managed to find a lawyer who gives free first-time consultations, and I met with him last Monday. I brought the bank statements that I sneaked out from my parents' house. The lawyer said I might actually have a case, depending on how exactly the account was set up. If it was a custodial account under the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act, the money legally became mine when I turned either 18 or 21, depending on the state rules. If my parents moved it after that without asking me, it could be considered financial fraud. He needs the original account documents to know for sure and asked if I'd try to get those from either the bank or my parents. I decided to hit up the bank first, but his fees are way more than I can handle right now. He suggested trying to resolve it with my parents directly first, and only going for legal action if that doesn't work. I went to our local credit union the next day, same place my folks always bank. I asked about the account and showed them my ID, but since my name wasn't on the account anymore, they couldn't give me any info. I was so frustrated, I just sat in my car for an hour afterward. Finally, I decided to text my parents, asking for the original account documents and an explanation of what happened to the money. My dad shot back a message right away saying that explain everything if I came over to talk in person, but I insisted on seeing the documents first. He didn't text back after that. Later, my sister called me. She said our parents were pretty upset. She swore she had no clue the money was supposed to be mine. She said if she had known, she wouldn't have taken it. She wanted us to talk face to face, so we met for coffee the next day at a cafe halfway between our places. She looked really worn out and admitted she felt super guilty since finding out. Our parents had always told her they were covering her college expenses from their savings, so she never questioned it. She asked about my lawyer meeting and got upset, wondering if I was really going to sue our parents. I told her I wasn't sure yet, but I just want the truth and what should have been mine. She was worried I was going to make her drop out of school, but I reassured her that wasn't my goal. She's halfway through her program, but our parents need to fix this somehow. She couldn't see how they'd come up with that kind of cash now since most of it's already been spent on her first 2 years of tuition and housing. I asked her about the cost of her college, and she said it's about $45,000 a year for everything, so that's $90,000 gone from my fund with probably another $90,000 needed for her to finish. She didn't have any scholarships or financial aid because our parents told her they had it all covered, so she didn't apply for anything. After chatting with my sister, I decided to send my parents an email. I wrote that I wanted to know how the account was set up, when and how they moved the money, and what they were planning to do to make things right. My mom got back to me a few hours later, saying the account was originally a savings account set up when I was born, with her and my dad as the account holders for my benefit. They claimed when I decided not to go to college, they figured I didn't need the money and moved it to help my sister. She apologized for not talking to me about it first. I replied pointing out I never decided not to go to college, they told me they couldn't help me financially. I asked why they lied about having money for my education, but she dodged that part and said they thought they were making the best decision for the family. They knew I was independent and could make my own way, while my sister needed more support. I've been looking into college options for myself. There's a state university about 30 minutes from where I live that has evening and weekend classes. I could keep my job and take classes part-time, but even with in-state tuition, it would take me years to finish a degree that way. You won't believe the mess I'm in right now. The money that was supposed to cover my entire college education and living costs somehow got diverted, kind of like a magic trick gone wrong. It's a lot like what's happening with my sister now, she's got her education fully funded. My grandparents called me again last week, and boy, were they mad. They'd been adding to my college fund for years, thinking it was locked in for my education. Grandpa even said if he'd known my folks were going to pull a fast one, he would have set things up differently. He's so upset that he even offered to help out with legal fees. Of course, I accepted, but I'm also picking up extra work shifts just in case I need more cash for a lawyer. Then, bam, I get this email from my dad. He's trying to brush everything under the rug, calling it a misunderstanding and hoping we can just hug it out at dinner this Sunday. I haven't RSVP'd yet because, seriously, how's this just a mix-up? They lied for years and pocketed money that was meant for me. I'm not about to act like it was nothing. To make ends meet quicker, I snagged a weekend gig delivering food, so now I'm working around 60 hours a week. It's exhausting, but it keeps my mind off all this chaos. My sister texted me recently too, saying our parents have been constantly at each other's throats since all this blew up. Mom's been crying nonstop, and Dad's just mad at the world. She keeps urging me to sit down and talk things through, but I told her I'm still trying to figure out my next move. The lawyer got in touch again after I learned some things from the bank. He said without seeing the original account papers, it's tough to say what legal ground I have. He suggested I send a formal letter to my parents asking for all the account documents and a detailed spending report. If they don't send it, that'd make my case stronger if I decide to go legal later. I wrote that letter last night and plan to mail it tomorrow. I still haven't made up my mind about dinner on Sunday. Part of me wants to steer clear of them completely, but another part wants to confront them and ask why they do this to me. I'm still weighing my options. On top of all this, my apartment lease renewal is due in 5 days. I'm going to stick around here for now. Moving would cost a ton, and I need to save every dime. Plus, running away isn't really going to solve anything. I need to face this head on, even if that means going to court. I can't stop thinking about all the times I was strapped for cash over the past 6 years. Like when my car broke down, and I had to spend hours on the bus to get to work for 3 months because I couldn't afford the fix, or when I was sick but couldn't afford a doctor. There were birthdays and holidays where I could barely afford tiny gifts for my family while they were sitting on my college fund. The real kicker is that I'd have been okay with everything if they'd just been upfront with me. If back then they'd said, hey, we have some college money saved, but it's not enough for the whole shebang, maybe think about starting at a community college, I would have been cool with it. I'd have planned differently. But they lied, saying they had squat while planning to give it all to my sister. My sister's studying art history to work in a museum someday, not exactly a high-paying field. Meanwhile, I wanted to dive into accounting, which would have set me up with a solid career. But no, she gets to chase her dreams with what should have been my money, while I slog through retail and weekend food deliveries. Sleep has been a joke lately. I'm exhausted all the time, but once I hit the pillow, my mind won't chill out. I keep playing out arguments with my parents in my head that never actually happen. Update: a whole month's flown by since I last checked in, and wow, has stuff happened. I skipped out on the family dinner and decided to mail the formal letter instead. My lawyer helped me draft it, and I sent it certified mail so I'd know when they actually got it. The letter asked for all the account documents, a breakdown of the spending, and a repayment plan. I gave them a 2-week window to reply before I'd go for other options, basically a nice way of saying I'd sue. 3 days after they got it, my dad showed up unannounced at my apartment. I was getting ready for my evening delivery shift when he barged in, waving my letter in the air. He was livid, calling me ungrateful, and couldn't believe I'd even consider suing them. According to him, they've supported me all my life, and I have no right to demand anything now. I kept my cool and told him to leave if he couldn't be reasonable. That only made him angrier, claiming I was the one tearing the family apart. So, there's been some serious drama in my family over money. My sister was super upset because she thought I was trying to mess with her education, and my mom hasn't stopped crying since they got my letter. I'd asked about some account documents, and my dad just said they didn't have them anymore. When I asked how the money was spent, they said they didn't track every cent. I told them I didn't need every receipt, just a basic idea, but he said it all went to my sister's tuition and housing, and I didn't need to know more. When I asked about how they planned to pay it back, my dad just lost it. According to him, there was nothing to repay because the money wasn't really mine. They always controlled the account and thought they could use the funds however they wanted. They supposedly wanted to help me with college, but since I chose a different path, they spent it on my sister. I reminded him that I didn't skip college. They told me they couldn't support me financially. He claimed they thought I wasn't serious about my education, which made no sense since I had good grades and got into several schools. He had no answer for that. I eventually told him to leave since I had to get to work, but as he stood up, he warned me to drop this whole issue if I wanted to stay part of the family. That shook me, and I ended up calling in sick to my job because I just couldn't deal with customers. The next day, my mom kept calling, leaving voicemails about how they wanted to sort this out as a family. She said they loved me and didn't want to lose me over money. I texted back that if family was more important than money, they wouldn't have lied and given my college fund to my sister. Then my sister messaged me, saying Dad came home and punched a hole in the wall. Mom was so upset she had to take a day off work. She begged me to drop the legal threats and talk it through, feeling stuck in the middle. She even offered to pay me back after she graduated, but admitted it'd take years. I talked to my lawyer again, given that my parents weren't providing any documents or considering repayment. He explained we could file a lawsuit to get the documents, but it'd be pricey and no guarantee we'd win. He suggested one more try to resolve it directly before doing anything drastic. So, I sent another email to my parents, laying out what I needed, all the account documents, a breakdown of how the cash was spent, and a formal repayment plan. I mentioned I'd rather not go to court but would if I had to, giving them a week to respond. 5 days later, my dad emailed back, saying they'd thought it over and could pay back $20,000 over 5 years, which broke down to about $333 a month. They figured this was the best they could do and hoped it would help us patch things up. But there was nothing about the account docs or the spending breakdown. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, who said it was a start but not enough. Without a formal agreement, there's no guarantee they'd stick to it, and $20,000 was way less than what I should get back. He advised against accepting it without more details and a written agreement. I replied to my dad's email, saying I appreciated their willingness to talk about repayment, but I still needed the documents and a spending breakdown. Plus, $20,000 wasn't enough considering the account had over $13,000 when they transferred it. I suggested they consider a larger repayment amount for a shorter period. Right after I sent that, my mom called, crying again, saying they didn't have the documents and couldn't possibly pay more than $20,000 without really hurting themselves financially. They were planning to take out a second mortgage on their house to cover it, and she asked if I really wanted to put them in debt just to punish them. I told her it wasn't about punishment, it was about getting back what was mine. I asked how she'd feel if someone did the same to her. She didn't have an answer and just kept saying they thought they were doing what was best at the time. Then my grandparents called, asking for a status update. I told them about my dad's visit, the $20,000 offer, and my lawyer's advice. My grandfather got really quiet, said he needed to check on something, and would call back. The next day, he called and asked me to meet him for lunch, and I agreed. So, I met up with my grandparents at this restaurant near their house, and my grandma came along too. Honestly, they looked pretty nervous, and I was kind of curious about why. My grandpa had been sifting through some old files and came across something he thought I needed to check out. He passed me a folder, and inside was a copy of his and my grandma's will from 15 years back, plus some other papers. He pointed out a part in the will about a trust fund set up for my education. Apparently, my parents were supposed to manage it until I hit 18, and then it would switch over to me for school stuff. I asked if it was the same account I'd stumbled upon, and he thought it might be, but wasn't really sure. He had been putting money into a college fund for me since I was born, and this trust was a piece of that puzzle. My parents and some life insurance money from when my other grandparents passed had also added to it. I wanted to know why they changed their will if this was still in the latest version. My grandpa seemed puzzled and said they hadn't changed anything. I pointed out the issue: if this was in their current will and they were still around, how could my parents have accessed the funds? He didn't have an answer. The trust was supposed to roll over to me when I turned 18, no questions asked. So, the next day, I took the papers to my lawyer. He told me this could really shake things up. If the cash came from a trust my grandparents set up and it was meant for me at 18, my parents shouldn't have rerouted any of it. We needed to figure out what went down with that trust and how my parents got their hands on the money. He wrote up a formal legal letter demanding all the documents related to the trust and any accounts tied to it. If my parents didn't hand over the documents, we'd hit the courts and get the bank records through a subpoena. With what my grandparents showed me, our case looked a lot stronger than my lawyer initially thought. I sent off the letter via certified mail, and 3 days later, my dad called me right away. He was ticked off and couldn't believe I'd brought lawyers into the mix and was threatening to sue them. He said I was breaking my mom's heart and warned me I'd regret this for life. I kept my cool and told him all I wanted was the truth and what was mine. If they had nothing to hide, they shouldn't have a problem giving me what I asked for. He hung up on me after that. Then my sister texted me later. Apparently, our folks had filled her in on everything. She wanted us to meet up again to chat, so we did, at the same cafe as before. She looked even more worn out than the last time. Our parents had been arguing nonstop since they got the letter. Eventually, our mom confessed to her that they'd spent some of the money on stuff other than her education. She didn't know exactly what, but it seemed like it went towards fixing up the house and that Europe trip they took a few years back. It made her feel terrible. I told her about what our grandparents had shown me, and she started crying. She didn't know what to do either. She was halfway through her degree and couldn't move forward without their help. She asked if I was really going to sue them. I said I didn't want to, but I needed the truth and justice. She nodded, understanding. Yesterday, I got an email from my mom. They were willing to bump up their repayment offer to $50,000 over 3 years, and they'd try to get the bank documents for me. She pleaded with me to hold off on any legal action, wanting a chance to make things right. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, who saw the bigger offer as a sign they were getting serious. But it was still far less than what I was probably owed, especially if they'd used the money for things other than my sister's school. He suggested we wait to see what documents they actually bring to the table before making any decisions. So that's where things are now. I'm waiting for my parents to come through with the papers they promised. My lawyer is prepping a lawsuit just in case they don't. My sister's stuck in the middle, worried about her education and the family drama. My grandparents are bummed their wishes weren't respected for my schooling. Meanwhile, I'm juggling 2 jobs, trying to save enough to maybe start taking classes part-time next semester while dealing with all this stress. I still haven't been sleeping well, and the extra work hours aren't helping, but at least I feel like I'm inching towards some resolution. I don't know if I can patch things up with my parents after all this, but I can't just let it go. They took what was rightfully mine and lied for years. They watched me struggle while using my funds for themselves and gave my sister opportunities they denied me. I need the truth and a shot at the education I was meant to have. Update: it's been a couple more weeks, and my parents finally handed over some of the documents I asked for. So, here's the lowdown. My lawyer got hold of some old paperwork and transfer documents from 4 years ago. What we found out was way worse than I expected. Turns out, the account I thought was just a college fund for my parents was actually a trust fund my grandparents set up just for my education when I was born, starting with $25,000. The deal was that the money was meant only for my school expenses. My parents were supposed to manage it until I turned 18, and then I was supposed to get full control. As we dug through the statements, we saw that my grandparents had been putting money in regularly, and my parents chipped in a bit here and there, though not as regularly. After both my paternal grandparents passed away when I was 12, some of their life insurance money went into the fund too. By the time I was done with high school, there was over $13,000 in the account. And then it gets really messy. When I turned 18, my parents somehow convinced the bank to let them stay in charge of the account instead of handing it over to me. They claimed I wasn't capable of handling the money myself, completely fabricating documents to say I had a cognitive disability. They even roped in a doctor to sign off on it. I have no clue who this doctor was or how they managed that because I've never been diagnosed with anything like that. With them still in charge, they kept the account in my name for a couple more years, then moved all the money out when my sister was about to start her college journey. Most of it went to her education account, but about $30,000 went elsewhere. The dates suspiciously match up with when they did home renovations and took a trip to Europe, as my sister mentioned. My lawyer pointed out that this was plain fraud. They faked medical documents, misrepresented my mental state, and ignored the trust's original intentions. We clearly had a strong case for legal action, potentially claiming not just the original amount but also extra damages. I was floored when I found all this out. I knew they'd lied about the money, but I never imagined they'd go so far as to make up a disability diagnosis. It was a massive betrayal, and I just sat there in shock. My lawyer suggested giving my parents one last chance to sort this out before filing a lawsuit. He drafted a letter outlining everything we uncovered and demanded they pay back the $13,000 they took, plus another $30,000 for the non-educational spending, with interest from the past 4 years. The total demanded was just over $150,000, and they had 10 days to agree or face a lawsuit. I sent the letter by certified mail, and 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a lawyer for my parents wanting to talk settlement. My lawyer said not to talk to their lawyer directly and he'd handle it all. After their discussion, my lawyer told me my parents offered $75,000 as a settlement, paid in monthly installments over 5 years. My lawyer advised me to turn it down as it wasn't enough, suggesting we counter with the full $150,000 but maybe with a longer payment plan if needed. While all this was happening, my sister called, saying she was thinking of quitting school and getting a job to help pay me back. I told her not to drop out, this wasn't her mess. I reassured her we'd find a solution that wouldn't wreck her education. She was grateful and said she was furious with our parents for putting us in this situation. She moved out and was staying with a friend because she couldn't stand being around them after finding out what they did. I'm completely wiped from juggling 2 jobs and handling all this legal and family drama. I need to catch some sleep now. Thanks for sticking with my story so far. I'll keep you posted when there's more to share.